My notebook is before me as I stare at the cover, that I am unwilling to open. I've been sitting here for now what seems like hours, trying to begin a story that I must tell. I must make sense of it, at least in my own mind. Perspiration drips from the corners of my temples. Tendrils of fading blonde curls are damp across my forehead, and I push them aside with the back of my hand. The old mahogany rocking chair I sit in, with its old cane seat, presses into my bare legs, making my skin feel sticky, and I am sure that deep patterns are now embedded in the backs of my thighs that might blister, courtesy of the mahogany chair. I sit comfortably and vow to retrieve a pillow from the sofa when next I rise. The breeze I have been waiting for finally arrives as a soft whisper across my cheek, and I turn my face towards its source, sky and sea. In the morning light, I open the notebook and stare at the empty pages that are now somewhat damp from the humid air, and I begin again searching for the right words, the truest of words. It will come to me. I know that it'll come to me. I know it will. I close my eyes and try to remember all of it. It began some years ago. I was standing on a screen porch with my cousin Jordan. It was after the funeral of my great aunt who willed me this beach house and sits comfortably overlooking an ocean. The sky's a vivid blue and the sea was quiet, until quite suddenly, a quickly moving storm crossed the horizon and blocked out the sun. Darkness came, and a whispered voice close to my ear spoke. "Dare ye not linger, lest she bring curse upon ye, child." I turned quickly to the voice, but no one was there. A chill went up my spine. I thought I had imagined it. Moments later, again, the disembodied voice spoke. "Dare ye not linger, lest she bring curse upon ye, child." This time the voice was urgent and fearful. I began to tremble with an unreasonable fear of what I did not know. I grabbed my cousin Jordan's arm to plead with him to let us head for home. He took no notice of me and continued to stare at something that was standing beyond the gate. I turned to look, and before us was something that could only have materialized out of a Grimm's fairy tale. An unearthly woman glared at me from beyond the gate, and her dark crystal eyes began to glow so brightly that the darkness disappeared around us. The hag-like woman lifted its unseen wings, soared over the gate. The whispering voice behind me suddenly gave an ear-splitting scream that shook the floor where I stood. The hag-like apparition beyond the screen porch screeched with such an unearthly sound that I dared not move, if even I could. I was still holding Jordan's arm, and he turned to me as if to wonder what I was doing. "Jordan," I whispered, "what is that?" "What is what, Anna?" "You know, the old hag, the woman, Jordan." "Anna, there is no woman. Only a light in the window from the cottage down the road. But there is nothing to it." I was incredulous. Was I the only one who saw the woman and heard the unearthly screams? My young cousins, Richie and Anise, seemed not to be at all aware of what happened as they played along the beach before me. I couldn't understand what was wrong with them. And then once again I heard the whispering voice behind me, and I angrily turned to respond. The whispering apparition was floating in the air. Now it was in front of me. Her long dark hair was whirling around her head as though she was the center of a great storm. "Thou art hexed, forsaken in ye life, poor child," she said. "I beg thee not to gaze upon the harpy." The apparition's voice was sad and low as she slowly vanished before me. The sky was once again blue, the sea was quiet. The storm was gone, along with the screeching old hag. The mahogany chair was hotter against my thighs as the chair begins to rock back and forth. I know she is coming. I look beyond the screened porch, knowing she will come. I see her now, the harpy. She stands beyond the porch, her dark crystal eyes glare at me, as her dark mane of hair blows the storm she brings with her. Another form appears on the porch, near me. It is the apparition I know now as Nellie, who's been protecting me for all of these years. The harpy's unholy screech suddenly pierces the air, and in turn, Nellie's high-pitched scream drowns out all else. When it finally comes to me, the truest words. Do not look at the creature, the harpy. Do not listen to her screams, should you hear them, and abide this warning. Go as far away as you can, as quick as you can, for it is far too late for me. Okay, so this next story is called The Empty Apartment, written by Matt Richardson. I moved into my apartment complex 2 months ago. I started hearing things only a week later. It was subtle at first. Sometimes in the middle of the night, I would wake up to a faint scratching sound from somewhere behind the walls. I thought it would be mice or rats. I have lived through enough shitty one-bedroom apartments in Manhattan to recognize the signs. Small little turds on the floor, tiny holes in the plaster, and unending scratching that sounds like 1,000 little feet marching to the beat of my headache. The symptoms fit the bill. It had to be a mouse. So I put out the traps. I invested in a little steel wool. The internet says the best way to catch a rat is peanut butter, so I slathered spoonfuls of the stuff on the fresh tomcat trap. Amazon's best. I went to bed with the expectation that a fat rodent would be dead in my living room by the following morning. I laid awake eagerly awaiting their demise, but it rained a lot that night. After I turned off the TV, I tried to listen to the sounds of my furry friends falling for the bait, but the storm overtook almost every sound. Cracks of thunder shook the glassware on my kitchen counter. Water got inside through the cracks and spaces between the window's framing. I had to put a towel down. The dripping started to annoy me more and more than the rats ever did in the first place. But somewhere underneath it all, I heard something else. Something a lot more frightening than rats. A voice whispering, "Help me." I never really believed in the paranormal. I told people that a lot. I never saw signs or spirits like everybody else. Part of my subconscious felt like maybe this was a comeuppance. The ghosts on the street had heard me talking shit and now they were going to come for me. Maybe just to show me who's boss, so to speak. And I had nothing for protection. Nobody to verify my experiences. I lived alone in the middle of a lightly occupied skyrise. A demon or poltergeist could fuck with me all they wanted. And so I pulled the sheets up to my chin while the scratching started to overtake the storm, along with my rationality. The constant repetition of "help me" floated further through the walls. She started getting louder, more urgent. My fear-paralyzed mind told me that she was getting closer. I knew that was impossible, but I couldn't take it anymore. I got out of bed and marched out of my apartment, nearly stepping on the unoccupied rat trap myself. The building kept a guard on desk duty throughout the night. He needed to know about the voice. I hopped in the elevator with sweatpants and no socks. When it opened on ground level, a surprised security guard waited for me behind the desk. "Sir, are you okay? Can you check if the apartment next to me is occupied?" The tall Hispanic man furrowed his brow worriedly as he eyed my evening wear in distaste. He wore an official-looking blue-button shirt with black slacks with a radio clipped to his belt. "We really should not divulge. Somebody has been screaming 'help me' all night. I think they're in trouble, but I've never seen anyone go in there." The man looked worried as he pounded into a small laptop placed on the desk. "Okay, what apartment number?" 522. "Okay." The guard once again flashed a friendly smile as he gestured me out into the hallway and locked up behind us. We passed my own apartment on the way towards 524. I thought about going back inside and locking the door. Something about the situation made me squirm. But I didn't. "My name is Michael, by the way. What's your name?" "Matt." "Well, Matt, I'm sorry we have to meet under these circumstances." I nodded and waited while Michael opened the door. His casual attitude continued to make me very uncomfortable. 524 wasn't empty. Boxes upon boxes were stacked on the floor with neat little labels on each. Spare kitchen chairs made the studio tough to navigate. Once again, Michael waited by the door, while I navigated the junk and tried to investigate the other rooms. A small corner kitchen contained the usual boilerplate electronics. The drawers appeared untouched and empty. A thin line of dust formed over the countertops. I moved into the bathroom and found a recently renovated shower head sparkling against a fresh paint job. I started to get jealous. I let my guard down a bit. This place looked nicer than my own. I bet they would be renting it out soon. I was prepared to write the entire thing off as an odd experience before a voice spoke to me inside the bathroom. "Help me." It was closer this time, in the same room. I nearly jumped out of my skin, but I tried to keep cool around Michael, who was still outside creeping in the hallway. There was a closet in the bathroom. I opened it. Sitting inside was a teenage girl. She wasn't wearing any clothes. She pushed her knees up to her shoulders and linked her feet together in a sad attempt to remain modest. Sweat poured down her brow. It caused her pretty brown hair to become matted and tangled on her forehead. I covered her mouth and mine after she whispered again. "It's him. He did this." The footsteps approached from the hallway. I raised a finger as if to tell her to wait, and closed the door on the poor girl's face. Then I rushed over to the toilet and flushed the handle. The footsteps stopped. "Everything all right in there?" Yeah, sorry, just had to pee. This remodel is nice. Gotta get you guys to update my apartment." I opened the door and was immediately greeted by a very suspicious-looking security guard. I've got a leaky window frame. Who can I talk to about that?" Michael stared at me for about 30 seconds. He looked angry. Then he looked confused. Finally, the suspicion faded from his wrinkled features. "Property owner, not me." I laughed awkwardly and pushed past him. I walked out into the hallway in a rush, never bothering to look behind my shoulder as Michael followed anxiously after. I could hear him locking the door to 524 as I jetted towards my own apartment. "You don't want to check anywhere else?" I called out something back. I don't remember what. The adrenaline coursed through my veins so quickly that my futile attempts at being casual dissipated the moment I got to the door. I fumbled for the keys in my sweatpants pocket. I clacked them awkwardly against the metal lock. Finally, they found a groove in the door and turned willingly against my hand. "Anything else I can do for you tonight?" Michael had caught up to me. He looked very suspicious again. I could sense that he might try to stop me, so I had to come up with something. "Sorry, man, my last trip to the bathroom just didn't cut it. I had too much chili last night. Gotta go." Michael guffed over my shoulder as I opened the door and slammed it in his face. I tried to wait a few seconds before applying the chain lock. I waited for his footsteps to fade away first. Didn't want to spook him. Only then I released my hand from the handle and collapsed to the floor. The first responders arrived about 10 minutes later. I have to commend them for the speed. Part of me worried that Michael would try to run. Part of me worried that he would go back for the girl. Part of me worried he might try to come after me. He didn't. Police rescued the girl from the bathroom closet. Her name was Molly. She was 16 years old. She wasn't the only one. 7 other women were rescued from empty apartments throughout the complex. Each identified Michael as their abductor. Apparently, he kept them drugged and locked inside various rooms inside the building. He returned to visit them every night. Some were tortured, some abused. One was already dead. So I hope you guys enjoyed these spooky stories. Sorry, I kind of had to get this one out in a rush in order to make it for Halloween. So, like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Anyway, happy Halloween!